This is Isaac Morehouse. Welcome to the podcast where we discuss education, entrepreneurship, big ideas, how to put them into practice in the real world, and above all, how to live free. Today, I am joined by Tim LeVan Miller. Tim is an accountant by day and a musician by night. Or maybe, I don't know if it works that way, day and night divide, but I like to think of it that way. Not only that, Tim actually, he is my accountant. He does the books. He does a lot of work for us at Praxis. And accounting is not his first love, though. And I got to be honest, Tim, I don't know how I feel about knowing that the guy that's doing a lot of our, CFO work isn't passionate about using the 10 key to crunch numbers.
Well,
I guess I wouldn't be worried.
No. I mean, if you're happy with the results, not then, but
very happy.
Yeah, it's not, it's not that I'm not passionate about accounting. I guess I've never really had, I guess it's hard for me to say like passion with accounting. It's like a weird thing to say when it's been music my whole life.
Yeah. So, well, let's get into that. So that was, sort of the setup. And the reason that I really find this fascinating and I'm really interested in where this conversation goes is one of the themes we talk about a lot on this show is trying to optimize your life and really trying to discover what it is that makes you come alive, what it is that makes you feel fulfilled and live a life of meaning, a life that you enjoy where you're not bored. And it's so different for different people. Some people feel like the only way to do that is to marry the things that they enjoy with the things that make them money to eat. And others feel like connecting earnings to the things that they love would make them not earn enough money or end up hating what they love because they have to sell out. And it's kind of different across the board. And we've talked with a musician, Lucas Jack, on an earlier episode, who's kind of like, I'm going all in, I'm quitting my job, I'm doing music as a way to try to earn money. And I really like that you have, at least seemingly, a very different approach. You're doing something very practical to pay the bills, accounting, and you're doing it well, and you obviously don't hate it. But what you really love, that's really to enable you to do music. Is that an accurate way to describe it?
It's definitely accurate. It's not saying that I didn't at one point quit my job just to solely do music, because I did do that. But after about 6 months of that, realized that was just not going to work that way for me.
You were hungry?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it was like peanut butter and ramen, and mixing the two together, just like it was starting to make me, question everything.
Well, let's get your story. Let's get your background. I mean, kind of from the beginning, where did you grow up and when did you, which came first, your love for music or your sort of practical, let's go get an accounting degree? Give me the backstory.
Well, I'm from central Nebraska, right off I-80 in the center of the state, small town. I think I've always been a practical person, so I think that's why this plays, like why the accounting and music play so well together for me. I didn't even know what accounting was until college. So definitely did not have an understanding of that's something I want to do as a kid. It was always music, always writing.
So from a very young age, you've loved music.
Very much, yes. Yeah, I was never focused on being an accountant or being in business, really. It was more just discovering my love for music. And then as soon as I started writing music, writing fiction, everything just kind of exploded that way. And then getting into college is when I started as a music major at a very conservatory style program for music. And after my first semester, just realized that this was not going to work.
So talk about that realization. I mean, what brought that about, and not going to work in what way? What sort of made you decide to not focus on music as a kind of sort of official, credentialed or professional endeavor?
Sure. Yeah. The brass tacks of it is that I just hated music while I was a music major. Huh. And I got into it. I mean, my background in music, I had piano lessons from a young age, did high school band, played trombone through that, but rock and roll, guitar, bass, the guitar, bass, drums, doing that, writing my own music, not following any rules, doing that whole sort of thing is what I was truly passionate about. The creation side of it, not, I got into it and it was all studying, they were training us classically. And I mean, I was in a field with so many phenomenal musicians, and when you're up against that, your options are to teach, to perform if you're going to, be in that top percentage. And I knew those were two things I did not want to do on a classical level.
So, I mean, did you have this dream like you wanted to be a rock star on like a big stage, be famous, or was it always more you just want to play music?
I think every kid dreams of being a rock star, but I don't ever really think that was never a driving force for me. There was just something in me that whenever I was doing it, I've never felt more like driven to really create on that level.
So let's quickly kind of give me a flavor for what instruments do you play? What style of music do you do? Sort of where are you at right now? And you can go to timlevanmiller.com to check out Tim's performance schedule, some of his music that he has there. We're going to play some at the end of the show. But if you could summarize for me, for somebody who's new to your music, what do you play? What do you sing? And what is your style?
Well, I'm right now a singer-songwriter, primarily just playing guitar. If I'm performing, I originally am a bass player and played bass for many years with many different bands, both on stage and the studio. And the last couple years have really primarily focused myself on guitar, trying to, improve my chops there. Just because when you're out performing by yourself, that's just the best thing to do. And when I'm with a band writing my own music, I experimented playing bass and hiring the guitar players, and it wasn't as comfortable for me. So I just stuck that way. My style is definitely a very indie rock sort of genre, but I have definite hints of blues and Americana spread throughout most of my writing.
You're writing from so I listened to the album that you shared with me and some stuff from your website. It definitely has a quality that is common in country music, and I don't like country music personally, at least like sort of the modern incantation. But the quality that I've always liked about it, which actually hip hop has as well, it's a storytelling quality.
Oh yeah,
I feel like your songs are very much they're stories about people. There's a very much of a storytelling element in there. Would you say that's definitely a part of your writing?
That is a huge part of my writing.
Okay, I got it right.
Yeah, no, you're good.
I don't want you to be like, how dare you? I hate storytelling musicians.
No, I write a lot of fiction as well. And so the two really go hand in hand. In fact, I have several songs that are either inspired by or have inspired short stories or flash fiction. It's, really creating characters, diving into the creativity that way, trying to create empathy through characters. And when I put that to music, create melodies, and then start intertwining everything else in that, everything just comes alive.
So, you hear often with writing that write about what you know. And, I'm curious in stories, if you're going to write a fiction story with several different characters, you're not, obviously not all the characters are some reflection of you. They might be people or things like that. But I think there's kind of an assumption, at least maybe I have it often, that in songwriting, the people are usually writing about themselves. Is that true, or are you able to sort of put yourself in the shoes of a completely different character or of somebody with a completely different personality and write about experiences that you yourself haven't been through, but write about them in a way that maybe someone writing fiction about multiple characters could do?
I think there's a definite base for writing about what you know in anything, even if you can take the most crazy scenario, scene, and characters and create this story, create all the support for it, the scenes. I really think you're still pulling from something personal, whether that be characteristics of somebody you know. You may not be creating a character based on somebody, but it may be those characteristics of this type of person, or the scene, you've seen this play out somehow, and you kind of take those little ounces of information and then really dive into that and try to unwrap that and present, a new image that you're trying to show.
I want to jump back to your early sort of musical endeavors. Why bass? What made you pick up the bass first?
Well, I had a couple friends in high school, and they had started a rock band and needed a bass player. So
everyone needs a bass player.
drummer had an extra bass sitting around, so I picked it up and really focused on that for probably 12 years maybe until
So would you say that's still your first love? Like if I say what's your favorite instrument to play, would it be bass still?
I don't think so. I think I've spent so much time working on my songwriting that whenever I pick up a guitar, especially an acoustic guitar, it feels right, and it feels like you can really bring something out of it. The thing I always hated about being just a bass player, because that's what so many people knew me as, is it's hard to just sit in your room and play bass by yourself.
Yes.
There's not, you got to either play with the drummer or people, or, play to a recording. Guitar it speaks on its own, and you can kind of have a conversation with it.
It's interesting. I totally amateur musician, singer, guitar mostly, and played with some different bands and things. And probably 2-3 years ago, for the first time ever, I picked up bass to just play a little bit because we needed somebody to play bass. Our bass player was gone, and so I was like, I'll try to learn the basics here. And I actually found that I really loved it, but there was something really surprising that I found with bass, because I really enjoy singing, and I really enjoy singing harmonies. And I found that playing bass actually helped my ear to find harmonies a lot, like that I really did not expect. I never would have thought that to be the case. But I don't know. Is that just me being crazy, or do you think that is that a common thing?
I think that's very, very common. I mean, bass is always structured. You're kind of structured around the root of the chord, whatever you're playing, but the bass gets noticed when you start using those melodic notes and harmonic notes around the chord structure. So that's kind of where, you're trying to hear, where can I go with this either rhythm or note, and that's kind of where you're leading. So I feel like that's definitely true.
Oh, good. That makes me feel like my discovery has some grounding in reality. Okay, so I want to get back to your story. So you're in school, you realize you don't like this classical music education. It still seems like kind of a strange transition to decide, I guess I'll study accounting. What was that decision like?
It's totally strange, and accounting was not on purpose either. I totally just fell into accounting. I was at a small liberal arts school and they had this entrepreneurship class, because I figured if I'm not going to do music, I would love to just run a business or do something to where I'm still not sure I'm really ingrained to just getting a day job and doing that. I needed something else. And this is when I had just quit music. I was like, I can't do this. So I went to go sign up for this entrepreneurship class, and they told me I had to take accounting 101 before I could get in there. So I was like, all right, whatever. I'll take that, and actually kind of enjoyed it, surprisingly, and ended up picking up an accounting and finance major at that point. And at that point, I realized this is something that I could graduate, get a job that could give me enough stability to where I can really just go out and focus on my music still.
So were you throughout college, as you're getting your business and accounting degree or finance and accounting degree, were you gigging and playing, playing the scene, playing shows at whatever clubs, coffee shops, and things like that?
I definitely was kind of through the first half of college, pretty heavily with a couple different bands. And then toward the latter half, I focused more on the school, just because I knew I had to. It was more of a game. Could I get through school, get good grades, and graduate so that I knew the life of my music was going to depend on me being able to make money somehow. And I didn't want to work back at a fast food joint again and do that sort of thing. And so I focused on the studies the last kind of year and a half. And then as soon as about last semester before I graduated, met up with some people and really focused hard on music after that and being a bass player for a band.
So when you graduated, what year was it when you graduated?
2008.
Okay. So what came next? Was it like, all right, I'm out in the job market. I'll put this music thing on hold until I find a job, or was it what was the sort of the immediate post graduation path?
Well, I graduated in December, and that I think it was that October before I had landed a job at a mid-sized public accounting firm in Lincoln, Nebraska, and was like, all right, I got a job. Had no idea really what tax season was. Did not do any sort of internship through school.
Big surprise on the way.
Yeah, I was just like, if I can graduate with good grades, get out, get a job, I'll be fine. You know, something that's just gonna help me stay alive. So got this job, pretty much started January 2nd into tax season, and meanwhile was still very, very involved with the music, and got into the job, you know, mid-sized public accounting firm, pressure on to get your CPA, you know, work as many hours as possible. And at first, you know, I was like, oh, I'm getting a paycheck. This is pretty cool. But within the first month, I would say I really started questioning what I was doing.
Okay, for people who don't know, what is tax season like working at a place like that?
It's just a grind. You come in early, just do a bunch of work and leave late. And it's Monday through Saturday expectation. Everybody's trying to beat each other in the door and stay as late as they can. So, I mean, and this was my experience. And This is me coming from a musician background to where we don't have those rules. I just kind of do what I want.
And the kind of work you're doing is basically tax returns?
Oh, yeah. 100% tax returns.
For individuals or companies?
All of the above.
Okay. And so it was just a sort of an eyes glazed over grind for a while. Okay.
Yeah. And it's something that, you know, I went in with two other people my age, and you're either going to excel or you're going to figure out something different. And I definitely realized very quickly that I was going to figure out something different.
So how long did that last, and what was your exit plan?
I stayed there a year and a half, did 2 tax seasons. I think it was right after or during my second tax season, I ended up buying a 47-foot bus with a buddy of mine who I was playing music with, and was like I'm supposed to be studying for the CPA exam, but we have a bus to make over so that we can tour. And this is kind of what I'm going to do. And that
I'm imagining this like Jekyll and Hyde. There's like the artist and the accountant, you know, in you. Like, you should be doing tax returns. No, you should be driving around in a 47-foot bus.
Oh, it's so true. It was definitely an internal evil or an internal conflict, because it was my first real job post college, and
it comes with your family's proud of you. It's prestige.
Oh, yeah.
You know, people start to question your sanity if you walk away from that and buy a bus, I imagine.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's people. I mean, I'm sure my family was just kind of wondering what I was doing. I mean, they were always 100% supportive, but you know, it's also, I'm sure, seeing me go through school, get a job, and then just probably throw it all away.
So you quit the job.
I quit the job and moved to Philadelphia.
Why Philadelphia?
Well, I was hanging out with a buddy, and we just decided that was going to be the place to go. And he and I were playing music together. He was a singer-songwriter. I was his bass player. We had bought the bus together, and neither of us wanted to be in the Midwest at the time, and saw greener pastures on the East Coast. So figured we'd check it out.
What came of the bus?
We kept it. We
did you
toured
drive
out
it to
Philly
Philly?
in it.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I mean, give us a description of what this bus was like. You know, what was the inside like? And you're putting a lot of miles on this thing. What was that like, touring across in an old bus?
It was an experience. It was yellow when we bought it. The inside,
so
the
guy
we bought
bus.
it from. It was an old 1987 school bus,
which always looked like the most unsafe and like ancient things on the road. You know?
has the huge dog nose on the front. We the inside was gutted, had some bunks that had been started. All the windows were taken out and had kind of the long limo windows put in. But we completely overhauled it, put down like a laminate floor and carpet, and had a futon in the front, little hangout area, TV, PlayStation, bunks, and then storage area.
This sounds amazing. So did you just live off of savings while you were touring?
Yeah. So quit my job. I knew I was going to move, probably about 6 months before I quit my job. And we decided we were going to do this. I knew I had to, just buckle down, save everything I can from each paycheck, because I want to move. I want to quit my job. I just want to play music for a while. I was also super naive at the fact that I really had no idea what that meant. Getting into Philly and actually doing that. But learned, because I also learned through that experience that I did not want to be a working musician, in the fact to where you're dependent upon playing shows maybe 3 or 4 times a week, probably 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. sort of, schedule, most likely playing covers 90% of the time. I knew that was not something I wanted to do either.
It's such an interesting tension. I think a lot of people who want to be creators or musicians or artists of some kind, or maybe they are sort of secretly on the side, and they have this sense of, if only I could do that for a living and get paid to do that every night, man, my life would be made. And I think sometimes that may be true for some people, but sometimes you realize that, working for the man, if you don't like that, why would you want to do that to your art? Why would you want to turn your art into that? And there's a tremendous, sort of entry level, at least, where you're really just grinding to do what's needed, to play cover songs in the lounge of some of some bar. And if you love that, that's great. But I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, it's not as fun as maybe you imagine.
It's a very tough life, and it's hard to have any sort of stability with that kind of life, unless you have, unless you're on some sort of, cruise boat schedule or something to where you have regular shows, earn an X amount of dollars. But when you're hustling to, get gigs at, bars, you're dealing with bar owners who, music's probably the last thing they really care about. I mean, they want you there, but, there's also like a quality level that goes along with, what they care about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I imagine for someone like you who really loves the songwriting, there's probably a tension there, because the typical bar audience they want to hear something they can sing to, right?
Yeah, no, it's for sure. If somebody comes up and gives you $20, I mean, one of my good friends who's a drummer always said this: if somebody comes up and gives you $20 and says, play this song, you kind of got to do it. So
how long did you do that in Philly? And were you able to make enough to live on?
No, definitely not. I did it for about 6 months until I started shopping around for another job. But I pretty much tried out both extremes and was like, I need to get a taste of what each of these types of lives are like, and then pull what I want from each of them and start to create my own.
So the corporate grind versus the starving artist. And
yeah.
you didn't like either of those archetypes. You wanted to build something unique.
Yes, very much. And so I went, and at the time I was just trying to find anything, because I knew within a couple months I'd be, scraping for rent money. But something that my ideal job was something, 30 to 40 hours a week, no sort of tax season grind that I had experienced before, to where I can work, like you had said earlier, kind of daytime hours, and in the evening, weekends, play music.
And what was the first job you got after that 6 months of playing music?
It was back with a very small accounting firm. We primarily they still had a tax season, but I made it very apparent that I did not want to do that in the interview, and for some reason they still hired me. I went on, I think, for about 25 to 30 hours with them, and it was just enough to where I could survive, I could get what I needed, and start to figure out what was next.
And so currently you work at Ceteris, and we've had so Ceteris is a company run by my brother who's been on this podcast before, and they provide kind of accounting and back office services to small businesses and franchises and things like that. And so now you work there, and I remember this is interesting talking to my brother about different types of employees, and he said, there seems like there's two types of employees that do really, really well. There are those who they want to dedicate their whole life to this kind of work, and they're here to learn and move up and help build this, and this is what they live and eat and breathe and sleep. And there's hardly anybody that fits that category, but every once in a while you'll find some. The second kind are the ones who know from the get-go, this is not what my passion is in life. I want to do what I need to do to be a great employee so that it gives me the freedom to do other things. And he said, most people are in the middle and don't have that level of honesty. They tell themselves, oh, I want to be dedicated to this company. This is my favorite thing in the world. And really they don't, but they haven't figured that out yet. And you have this sort of honesty where you're like, look, I'm going to do my work and I'm going to do it well. But I don't want to work 70 hours during tax season because that's not what I'm here for. You have sort of your boundaries coming in, and I don't know, was that something that was hard for you to learn how to do? Was it scary to go to a company and say, hey, look, I want to work for you. I'll do good work, but I'm not going to try to come in earlier each day to prove myself.
Oh, it was so hard. And when you're going in, especially a very small business that has, an owner who is also doing a lot of the work himself or herself, they want you to be there all the time. And usually, I can't say that for everybody, because working at Ceteris has been a dream. Everybody wants everybody else to succeed in what, and do the best work that they can in whatever aspect of their life, they're striving to do. But going into a small business to where they may have a high turnover rate, especially a small tax accounting firm, to where, you're essentially competing with people like H&R Block. How many people can you get in the door? You might be doing a small amount of back.
You weren't spinning a sign wearing a Statue of Liberty costume.
No, that was not the position.
Although, hey, take that guitar and sit outside and play a song about tax returns.
Yeah, although at the time I would have totally done that for something, But yeah, it is hard, especially, when you're in your early to mid 20s, you've been through the traditional college, institutional education, trying to tell somebody, you're going to interview for a job. They have multiple candidates, but you want to try to stay true to yourself and put your passions out there too. I think the hardest thing is, it's not the hardest thing. The best thing is if you can get in the door and prove yourself and prove that you're going to do an excellent job. But then when you turn off the light at night, you're out, you're doing your other stuff, but you're going to be back there tomorrow, proving that you're reliable, you do great work. Once you get those things, then it's usually a breeze.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And I found, I've worked with so many different people over the years, and I've always found really refreshing the people who, like this is what they want to meet all the criteria, meet and exceed the expectations, the things that are required of them, do their work well, but and they're very upfront about, this is not my life. I'm here to do this. This is the other thing that I really love, and that's my passion. And when you have that, when you know that, and they're not trying to, like, you get a lot of employees who they want everyone to believe that they are only thinking and eating and breathing and sleeping the company, but that's not true. And so it's this weird like posturing and signaling. And I think the ones that are really upfront about it, like, look, this is the schedule that I've negotiated. This is when I'm in, when I'm out. If my work is not up to par, you can fire me. But if it is, this is what I'm going to be doing. This is my thing. And there's just something really refreshing about that level of self-knowledge. Okay. So now you're at a place where you're working You've got a good schedule that lets you kind of work, hours that you're comfortable with. How do you fit in? How do you prioritize? Like, how many hours would you say you spend a week on music? And what is that? What are you spending it on? Writing? Are you recording? Are you performing shows? What does that look like?
Yeah, it constantly changes. I'm kind of a cyclical person with my music and writing. I'll go through a phase where for 9 months I'm just solely focused on booking shows, lining up band members for those shows, and that's how I was for the first part of this year. Now I'm kind of moving over to where, I'm trying to find other opportunities within music, focus more on my writing, start and doing, just looking for more opportunities, because it comes to a point where I start to do one thing over and over and over, trying to book, and I just get sick and tired of it. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to find a balance to where, you do a little bit of everything throughout the year. And so I probably spend 20 to 30 hours out on my own doing some sort of thing within music, writing, performing, within that area. It's something that I just constantly live. And so I don't really, if I come home from work and I pick up my guitar and then it's 2 hours later, I realize I've just been sitting there, running through songs, trying to think of what I want to work on, working on my chops, or I'll sit and I'll have a song that I'm focused on working. Maybe I've got the first little idea of what it's going to be, but you're really just trying to feel it out and get into it. So I definitely don't have a set schedule of, hey, Monday I do this, Tuesday I do this. And that's probably something I should probably work on as I develop what it is I'm trying to accomplish.
Well, so do you ever have motivational problems? Because I can see, when you have to, let's say if you didn't have an income elsewhere and you were forced to, I've got to book gigs, I've got to be getting my chops better because I have to do it to earn a living. Okay, there's great motivation. Now, as we talked about before, that can keep you from things like writing new material and whatever. But now that you don't need it, now that you don't need to do music in any way, you don't need to book another show next weekend or get another download on your website in order to survive. Is it hard for you? Is it ever tempting to just sort of take your foot off the gas pedal and kind of get lazy with it? What do you do to stay motivated to keep pursuing music?
I definitely get lazy when it comes to the booking side of things. That's not the fun job for me. It's you trying to contact people who are not in the habit of really contacting you back right away. It's not like being in a business where everybody, you each need each other. Well, there is a need, but there's varying degrees of how strong that need is.
If you email me and say there's a discrepancy in your books,
yeah, you're going to get right back to me.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if you email me and say, hey, can I come play a gig at your bar? Here's a bunch of my stuff. It's moving down on my priority list because it's not urgent.
Yeah. And also at the same time, those bars are probably getting dozens, if not hundreds of emails a week from local regional acts coming through.
So maybe you can be like, hey, it's your accountant here. I'd like to talk to you about your books. How about you have me come play a show and then we can talk about it?
That's an excellent campaign there. I may have to work something up on that. Almost kind of scare them into replying.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
So do you like what motivates you to keep booking? Do you really love playing live?
Playing live is a lot of fun. It's something that I have grown into. When I first started, I always loved playing bass behind somebody. I was a great number two man. I was, great at booking when it was somebody else's name. As soon as you start, and I had this problem as soon as I started really focusing on my own music and putting that as number one for me, getting up on stage, it took me quite a while to really be completely comfortable. And it's still, you still get the adrenaline rush right before you go up, that, it's the nerves and everything, kind of the stage fright, but you learn how to deal with that, and you learn how to, use that as almost a secret weapon to, improve your stage performance. But performing it's never been the staple for me. The creating, the writing is really what moves me and gets me going, along with the recording. So I'll spend hours at home working on songs, and I'll have, 10 songs that have been started, another 10 that are finished, but I'm trying to figure out instrumentation, and 3 of those I am currently recording and working on to try to, cement the sounds I hear in my head onto, some sort of device that somebody's going to listen to.
Are you an introvert?
Definitely. I mean, yeah.
That's so interesting, because there's many people who, one of the things that gets them so into music is the high that they get from, and I'm like this, I'm an extrovert. So if I go and give a talk somewhere, I get a high from getting in front of that crowd and like getting started. And the same with music for me. That's one of the things I love the most about it is, like I would much rather be with lights on a stage with a whole bunch of people than just playing with a bunch of friends. Cause there's something about that gives me a high. But it sounds like for you, that's not part of where the fulfillment comes from so much. That's something that you had to kind of get more comfortable with. Or do you get a high from being on stage, being in front, being the front man, but is it mixed with nerves as well?
There's definitely a high. It's that adrenaline rush. You're not going to sleep that night after you get done performing. It's just that it's a great feeling and I love it, but I love more trying to bring something new into this world, something new that I can share with people. Something that's really going to push me to, to different levels, something that I can listen back to later and just be like, holy crap, this is cool. Like, I think that's the biggest motivator for me, is trying to create music that, next week or 5 years from now, I still really want to listen to, and but it's trying to find those sounds that really, excite my ear and excite kind of the inner passion of music.
So if I said, I'm going to take one thing away from you, you can perform on the highest level, be a superstar in front of as many people as you want to, but it's got to be all existing stuff, or you can write new stuff all day long, but you'll never be able to perform it in front of people. Which one would you take?
I think I would take the writing. I mean, it's probably, there's a lot.
I know it's an unfair and sort of a silly question.
For sure, yeah. But I think sure, there's
idiot.
Being on stage, if that's the way it's going to be, you got to look at all the other stuff. I don't know that I want to be on the road for 2 or 3 years at a time, doing that sort of thing. It's, that existing material would eventually become cover songs to me. And I think they'd kind of lose their zest if I knew I was never going to create something new again.
Creating is a bigger motivation than performing, definitely, for you.
Definitely, yes.
Okay, so give me would you say you're happy with your current work-life balance?
Yes, I definitely am.
Do you consider music life, or do you consider that work as well? Do you have to take a break from music the same way people would take a break from a job and unwind?
Yeah, I definitely do. I noticed this most about a year ago. My wife, who's a freelance artist, and I went to a little town outside of Asheville, North Carolina for a week, and she was studying under a screen printer up there, and I had a week. We had rented a cabin, and I had set up a recording studio and just spent, I think it was like 6 days for about 12 hours a day writing and recording new material. And by the end of that week, I was about shot. It was, and I think part of it is not having a group of, it's not something that you can go show the world right away. Songwriting, something that it takes some time, and especially you want to get it to a certain point to where you're, comfortable with it before you show other people what's going on. And so it's a very internal process that you're constantly throwing over yourself as you figure it out.
What's interesting is, so all of the people I know who are writers, as in whether it's columnists or journalists or authors of books, it seems very common for writers to have a work style that is sort of small amounts every day. So they might write 1,000 words every day, or write for 2 hours or 4 hours every day. Rarely is it more than that. It's like a few hours every day. Whereas I find that, again, I'm talking about a small sample size here and it could be off, but people who write music, it's almost like these giant batches. It's like you'll go for a long time where or maybe that's the recording side. I'm not sure if the writing is done differently, but where, you're not doing it. And then you'll have like a couple weeks or a month where you're just like all day long, you're like writing and recording. Do you kind of batch your writing, or are you always writing a little bit every day?
I definitely like to batch the writing, and it easily goes hand in hand with recording.
So you like getting in that frenzy, like when you were up in Asheville, just like drive yourself to exhaustion until you got nothing left in the tank.
Yeah, exactly. But by the same token, like right now, I have a handful of songs that are just sitting on a whiteboard. I'm looking at them every day. I'm thinking about them every day, trying to figure out. I know there's something missing. I'm just not quite sure what it is. And every once in a while, you'll be messing around, or you'll be working on something. It's like, oh, I got to grab my cell phone, got to record a little voice memo, like have this idea, or need to write down this little progression that I think might work once I get to a guitar, or, so I have these songs that I'm constantly churning, trying to figure out what it is they're missing.
It's interesting. It's almost like, I could be wrong here, but it's almost like with your first accounting job, it wasn't the work format that was wrong. It was just the type of work, because you've exchanged tax season for writing and recording season.
Yeah.
You get in that frenzy. You can't do it all the time, but you have seasons where you're just going, sun up to sundown, cranking away.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I was, in a studio just working 12 to 15-hour days, working on music and stuff for 3 months out of the year, I would definitely have no problem with that. It's definitely not the work. It's definitely the work that I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, walk me through writing a new song. Let's just take one song. What's sort of a typical process, start to finish? How long does it take? Where do you get the original idea? Does it start with music? Does it start with lyrics? Kind of walk me through that.
Sure. When I start a new song, it's always going to start with the music, and not even melody or anything like that. Usually it's some interesting either chord progression or interesting chord itself that strikes something in me.
And so it's usually while you've got your guitar in hand.
Yes,
okay.
Definitely.
So it's not just like you're walking around and you hear a note in your head out of the clear blue.
No.
Okay.
So I might be playing songs, and then in between working on my chops, I'm just kind of fiddling around. It's like, oh, this is really something I should investigate. So I'll kind of keep that in the back of my mind, or usually what happens now, I've learned this the hard way, is as soon as I find something new that I like, I pull out my phone and take a video of maybe just 5-10 seconds of me playing something, kind of mumbling something over the top, trying to get, some sort of reason for what's happening.
Why video instead of just audio?
Just because that's what's quickest. I just open my phone. And
okay. So I was curious if there was something about you want. I just didn't know if you wanted to see like your fingering or something.
Oh no. Yeah. So audio would work just as well. And if I'm and that's another thing. If I have my iPad that has kind of my traveling software, if that's open, I'll just start a new song real quick in GarageBand and put something down to where I can explore it later.
And so you've got something down. You've got an idea. How long does it sit there? Do you make yourself say, okay, I've got to get back and finish that. I'm going to roll up my sleeves and do it. Or do you kind of wait until the inspiration comes to take it to the next step?
When I have something, I definitely try to mess around with it as soon as I find it, as much as possible. Sometimes it'll go somewhere and I'll have the song in the next 20 minutes. The basic avenue of where I'm going with it. Basic lyrics, basic idea. Sometimes I may just be totally stumped, but I know it's either a progression or a chord I want to use. I have to use this somehow. Or somehow where it's like a chord and something I'm singing just really make sense to me. So, but I can't get it past that level. So then I have that recording and I'm going to come back to that. And sometimes I'll just check my phone daily, like every morning or night, and just listen back to those recordings.
Do you do you forget sometimes, or are you like, you really remember everything you've thought of, or sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, where did I come up with this? I really like this.
No, it's completely, I freak myself out because I have no idea how I came up with that or that. And I learned it the hard way because I've lost, you're working on something, you get up, it's like, I'm going to grab a cup of coffee or something or glass of water and come back to it. And that 30 seconds it takes you to walk from a room to the studio and back, it's gone.
No, for me, it's the shower, and it's not with songs. It's with, if I have like a blog post or an article or whatever, this great idea, and I'll be like, oh great, I'm gonna be done in a minute. Let me just shampoo my hair, rinse my. Wait, what was I just? It's like it's brutal.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere, I can't write anything down or bring my phone into the shower with me. So.
Yeah, exactly. You need some sort of like voice memo right on the outside of the shower.
Yeah, I just need like a Jeeves standing out there and I'd be like, Jeeves, I have another idea. That makes everyone uncomfortable. Okay, so when it comes to the lyrics, so you've got a melody, a theme, a chord progression you really like. Is it hard to find subject matter that fits? Is it like, are you searching around like, oh, this should be a song about a broken heart, or how is the process of writing? Or is it just you play around with different phrases and you kind of go based on that and let it lead you into a subject?
Yeah, my lyrics always I put a lot of weight on the cadence they take with the music. Everything, the lyrics need to make sense lyrically, but they also need to make sense rhythmically. The words you're using. And a lot of times, most recently, I was driving home from work, listening to NPR, and something came on talking about a certain subject, and it was a topic. It was 2 words that I really found fascinating. And I was like, I can really, my mind just exploded with all these things. And so I came back and was really trying to write something to put to those 2 words, but then realized I had this other song to where the vibe was the words were a little heavy and edgy. And so I had this.
What were the words? Can you tell us?
Frontier justice.
Okay. Ooh, I see. That's just like very like Americana roots rock phrase right there.
And I had this piece that I'd been working on, this song that I loved, but I just could not go anywhere with it lyrically. And I just didn't know what was fitting, melody, anything. And so then I decided that those 2 needed to go together, like needed to marry those somehow. But then again, took me probably another few weeks before I could really hammer out how it was all going to fit and what the story was going to be, and so forth.
So the lesson in here for you aspiring rock stars is, on your commute home from your accounting job, listen to NPR.
Exactly.
and that's where all that rebellious rock and roll inspiration will come right from the 10 key to the I don't know, 6 strings.
Yeah.
So do you have any habits or practices that you have inculcated over the years that helps you in your creating, in your music writing and performing?
Practice when I'm rehearsing, whether it's by myself or with the band, and this comes into play a lot when I have shows coming up. I always record. I always have Pro Tools open, recording the rehearsal. Everything's going through the board so we can hear things clearly, so we can listen back, or so I can listen back. I mean, that's been like my cardinal rule for everything, is always record yourself to listen back, because it does sound a little bit different than what it sounds to you or what you think you're doing. Or how it may be some way you're trying to sing or play a certain chord. And so learning, that's the best way I can learn about what I'm doing, is that way. As far as little rules as for like the day-to-day, I now write everything down. So like there's a whiteboard in my studio that has every song I've written, where it is, and as far as, is it complete? Is it, work in progress? And then notebooks filled with ideas, where things need to go. So it's just being in that. I find if I write stuff down, I'm going to know what I'm working on. I know what I should be working on. And it's not really in a like, oh, I need to get this done so I can get a product or service out and get paid. It's more for my own self. I have this list of songs. So if I don't write it down, I'm not looking at it every day, then I mean, you're just going to tend to get lazy and forget about it.
So how would you say your music is doing right now? So you've got your website. Can people download or purchase your music there?
They can purchase CDs through the website, physical CDs. Otherwise it's on iTunes, Amazon, all the major, it's on, streaming areas. So with your shows and your website visits and things like that, like where do you feel your music is at? Do you feel like you have a pretty solid fan base? I would not say I have a solid fan base. I have definitely fans that, if I'm going to play a show, they'll come out, but I haven't really put a lot of,
like, do you have goals for that? Or is it more just about what you just want to create, what you want to create?
I think I did a year ago, and realizing within this last year that it's not necessarily playing, 2 shows a week or 3 shows a month, whatever it may be. That's not my goal. Being on the road is not my goal. I love being in the studio. I love being in my studio, working on my own, trying to create, trying to record, figure out sounds. And so moving forward, I'm finding ways to where I can, take what I create and find places for it. So whether that be, sync licensing, stuff like that with film and television, trying to find other people I can work with, independent filmmakers who are looking for original music for their films, trying to build relationships like that to where I can share this music with the world.
Yeah, that's you realize the opportunity to get your music out there, instead of being on a stage with however many people can fit in the bar, putting it on a platform that, every additional unit has no marginal cost to you. It's an infinite, growth and distribution. It's pretty cool. It's pretty powerful. Even if you're, doing it on a independent scale, there's something that's got to be pretty exciting about that potential.
Oh yeah. And I think that's definitely what I'm striving for is, I love projects. I love working with people who love working on their own art. And so collaborating with people like that, and my wife and I do it all the time as she's an artist, but finding outside people too, who can offer you something that you didn't know anything about. So if that is a filmmaker, that's going to bring so much more creativity to what you're working on. 'Cause you're getting so many new opinions and ideas from an outside creative source.
So you can make an original song for this podcast.
Hey,
something. I'm trying to think of something really cool like Frontier Justice, but that's already taken. We'll come up with something.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Maybe it can work in accounting somehow. So would you? Let's say some of your musical projects started to take off. Let's say you scored some original pieces for some filmmakers or something like that, and you started to make some money for it. If right now you could make enough money doing your music, would you quit your accounting job and go full time at it?
It would have to be. I would have to have some sort of understanding of where the music was going, where the monetary side of things were going. If it's not like, oh, hey, I'm going to sell a piece of music, make a chunk of money, quit my job and try to do that. I know with this business, 6 months, 2 years down the line, you're going to be right back to needing some sort of day job to keep things going. I do not want to push myself into an area to where I'm like losing my sanity because I'm trying to pump something out for $1. I know that does not work for me.
Do you have any advice for someone who's maybe, 18, 20, 25, or really any age, but who's a musician or an artist and they want to keep creating, but they're kind of struggling to know how to continue to do that, how to make a living at the same time, whether they need to try to go full time on it, whether it means, getting a job, is that selling out? Would you have any thoughts or advice for someone in those shoes?
Yeah, I definitely don't think you can put any weight on what other people are going to tell you as far as, you mentioned this selling out word. I've always had such a problem with that.
I hate the phrase too. I actually hate the phrase.
Nobody has the right to tell you whether you're selling out based on your own personal decision. I really think my biggest thing that my mom has always told me was listen to your gut. And, as you age, I think you get better at listening to that instinctual idea and feeling and what you should be doing. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned over the last 5 years through all these changes, 10 years, is, there's a reason your body is telling you something. And if you feel like you need to go out and get a job to support your habit, then that's probably something you should do. If it's something that you need to spend the next year just fully devoted to writing to explore what you're doing, then you need to do that too. Like I said, I experimented with both extremes before I could finally figure it out for myself.
It is very interesting, and it takes such a degree of self-knowledge. And almost for me, the way I sort of think of it is like, okay, I love music. Do I enjoy it more when it's a consumption good? And I even mean the creation and playing and of music, or when it's a sort of production good. Am I more happy when I'm doing it just for my own pleasure, where the music itself, the playing, the writing is the thing that I want to produce and enjoy, or when I'm doing it as something to exchange with other people? And at least for me, I just know that I'm not even willing to put in the time to get good at it. So obviously it's not at that level, but I think that's a really tough question. And I think a lot of people would like to be someone who wants to do, their art for a living, but they actually aren't. And it's hard to sort of come to grips with that sometimes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It can't. Yeah. I can definitely see that. I think it's just more like, where do you find the best enjoyment? And I think music is something that I really think out of all of the arts, when it comes to, writing, visual arts, whatever it may be, I think music is something that affects everybody. It's very rare you find somebody who is not affected by some sort of music, some genre, some band. And so I like you said, it is very hard sometimes to separate, is this something I really love because it's music and it's emotional, or is it something that I'm super passionate about and really want to focus my creative energy on? I think if you really, really are meant to create, you're going to create. I don't think that's something you can turn off. I've seen people try to do that, and it just, blows up years later, and all of a sudden they're back to doing it. I really don't think that's
all of a sudden they're
stop.
Buying a convertible and having a midlife crisis.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really fascinating. I like that. You can't turn that off. It's more a question of channeling it in a way that's the most beneficial.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Tim, I want to finish with one of your songs. What song are we going to hear?
I would say Fake.
Fake. All right. Tim LeVan Miller. You can go to timlevanmiller.com to check out his stuff. He's got links to his music there, his Twitter account. If you are in the Charleston area or the greater Charleston area, I'm not sure how far you play. Tim has live shows. Tim, we will have your song Fake and playing here as we conclude. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Isaac. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
all day, 9 to 5, trying to figure out how to survive your fate.